So Gail, I'm gonna go off camera until you cue us up.
Okay. Have you opened it up? You're unmuted. You're muted, Kim.
Sorry, I'm getting ready to open you up now.
Okay. Hello, 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 everyone. Thank you for joining us. We'll be a few more minutes. Hi. As people are still joining, to give people a few minutes to get on, and we'll get started shortly.
This meeting is being recorded.
We had quite a few participants registered, so we'll only give it a couple more minutes in order to be respectful of everyone's time and to keep us on schedule. So it's 3 after our time. I think we're going to go ahead and get started, and people can join as needed. So hello again, and thank you, and welcome to the Trauma Teaching and Creating Parent Advocates. Thank you for sharing your time with us to talk about trauma and adverse childhood experiences and what that means. My name is Gail Parker, and I oversee the education and engagement for the Southern California region of the Drug Enforcement Administration, Los Angeles Field Division. I work on the Operation Engage campaign, which is a drug prevention and educational campaign to raise awareness about the nation's opioid crisis, including other substances like fentanyl, meth, and counterfeit pills. While Operation Engage is one of the newest drug prevention efforts on behalf of the DEA is committed to being a part of the solution since 1986 by providing drug education awareness. DEA continues to evolve in their community outreach efforts, and they launched a groundbreaking initiative in late 2017. And some of you may have heard of it, that's especially in the school and in our LA area, called 360. With this initiative, they began hiring non-law enforcement individuals such as myself to bridge the gap between public health and public safety. I have over 27 years of experience in social and human services, which has extended to several leadership roles in drug prevention, substance misuse, and mental health. The public health crisis continues to change the way we work and the way we live. But what it has not done is change the way we encourage families, our communities, and especially our young people and teaching them and educating them how to live drug-free. We want to explore ways families, communities, schools, and employers can take small steps to mitigate the risk of drug exposure. The recent celebrity deaths of Michael K. Williams, DMX, and others have opened even a wider door of opportunity for us to continue to have this conversation and to include the taboo topics of mental health, trauma, gender, homelessness, and the justice system, and how these interconnects with addiction and substance misuse. We believe in the partnerships and collaboration between us all, and that it can open many doors to create spaces for learning, awareness, and continued progression for this effort. So today we have Dr. Young, and she will present on trauma and adverse childhood experiences. What does it mean when we're referring to trauma? What does it mean when we see behavioral issues in our children and how to respond to them? It's important for us to understand trauma and learn how to manage them, not only within our children, but also within ourselves as adults. So this is not an end-all be-all event. We'll talk more about how you can become involved with Drug Enforcement Administration on our efforts for Operation Engage and the things that we're doing out in the community. We encourage you and inspire you to create opportunities for young people. We want to give you resources and information to support and enhance the work around drug prevention. So today we are partnered with our national partners from the Lions Club, and we have a representative here, Kimberly Hayes, that will tell you more, and she will also introduce Dr. Young. Kim, you can take it away.
Thank you so much, Gail, for that kind introduction. I am Lion Kimberly Haynes. I am a member of the Knights of Prevention and Education Cyber Lions, and I'm also a staff member with Lions Club's International Foundation, where we work with our evidence-based social and emotional learning program to support the efforts of the DEA in educating youth and families and raising awareness about the importance of these collaborations and improving access to quality social and emotional learning programs that can help reduce the impact and the use of substances among young people. So today I am very happy to be a part of this evening and to share with you a little bit about our presenter today, which is Dr. Tamara Young. Dr. Young has a master's degree in social work with a school concentration, in addition to a certificate of advanced study degree in education and a doctoral degree in education from an educational leadership from National Louis University. Her educational experience has allowed her to be an advocate for students for the past 18 years. She currently holds the position of Director of Special Education at Lincoln Elementary School District in Calumet City, Illinois. She previously served as the Director of Pupil Personal Services and Special Educational Services at a neighboring school district in Fort Heights, Illinois. Dr. Young is also a member of Lions Clubs International. Her home club is the Lions of Calumet City, and she is also an associate member of the Knights of Prevention and Education Cyber Lions Club. In her capacity as a Lion, she serves as the Lions Quest chairperson in her Illinois district of over 70 local clubs. As a committed educational leader, committed to working towards building academic excellence for all children, she serves as the secretary for the Black Educators Advocacy Coalition. She is also an elected school board member for an Illinois School District 169. Our work with Dr. Young and Lincoln Elementary School District began around the evidence-based social and emotional learning program, Lions Quest. Through Lions Club's International Foundation, the school was the beneficiary of a Lions Quest grant to help provide training and support focused on improving academic outcomes, increasing parent engagement, and increasing community engagement. Our work took a slightly different turn early in 2020 with the advent of the COVID-19 pandemic. Dr. Young was instrumental in leading the efforts to raise awareness about the traumatic impact that the COVID-related fatalities, economic disparities, and restrictions were having on not only the students and families, but also staff and administration in the district. Under Dr. Young's leadership, the Lions Quest program became an integrated part of the district's approach and overall efforts to having a trauma-informed approach for caring for teachers, staff, students, and families. Through the support of Lions Club's International Foundation, COPE Cyber Lions, and DEA Chicago Division, the district has provided many wonderful opportunities for parents to connect with the school and community organizations, and providing activities like parent paint parties, acts of kindness projects, back to school health fairs, award ceremonies to recognize outstanding teacher and student achievements like Red Ribbon Week, and time set aside for teachers and students and staff to check in and care for their own mental wellness. So it is my pleasure to introduce Lion Dr. Tamara Young.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Lion Kimberly, for such a wonderful introduction of me. I am honored to be here this evening. I'm honored that you allow me into your space to come and share information with you that I think will be beneficial to you and the children that you serve and children who are your own. As we look at the title of the presentation, it says bad behavior or trauma. Oftentimes we think children are misbehaving when it's really an effect of trauma. Trauma has caused the type of interactions that our children showcase in our school districts, as well as how well they process information. And so we want to talk today about adverse childhood experiences and how trauma affects our children in the educational setting, and how we as parents can help support our children in that environment. Next slide. What parents need to know to become trauma informed. Next slide. Parents, we will talk about how parents can become advocates, as well as the partnership that they have within the schools and the communities and their supports. Next slide. So what is trauma? Trauma is an emotional response to a terrible event like an accident or natural disaster. Immediately after the event, shock and denial are typical. Longer-term reactions include unpredictable emotions, flashbacks, strained relationships, and even physical symptoms. How does trauma affect our children? Next slide. Next slide. Children who are suffering from trauma after exposure to adverse childhood experiences, which we call ACEs, often present with a variety of issues that disrupt their learning and hamper their ability to develop the skills necessary for social and emotional development. So what are ACEs? Next slide. When we look at ACEs, we're looking at 10 types of trauma that are classified as either personal or relational. I want you all to take the opportunity to look at the 10 types of traumas that are classified here as ACEs. I want you to think back when you were children yourself and look at the amount or the types of trauma you faced. You may have had 1, 2, 7, 8. What I would like for you to do right now is to think about it. And in the chat box, tell us the amount of traumas that you were exposed to in your youth. We'll give you a few moments to do that.
And Dr. Young, is just the amount. We're not specifying.
Correct. Just put the
Correct.
amount.
Yes.
If you had one, put one. If you've had two, put two. If you had three, put three. Okay, I think everyone has had enough time to place the number of classified traumas that they faced. Gail, if you could count that up for me and then give that to me in a little bit, that number. So we're a small group of adults here in this presentation, and we've looked at or added up the amount of classified trauma that we may have had in our youth. So now I want you to imagine our children in the school buildings and how many children in smaller districts. You might have 800 children. In larger districts, you can have up to 10, 15,000 students in a school. And just think about, if we look at all the students in an educational building and we look at the type of traumas that they've been exposed to, what do you think that atmosphere can look like? Especially if we don't understand trauma and we don't know how to connect with those students or how to provide resources and opportunities that they would need to be successful in school. Gail, do you have that number for me?
I counted 17.
Okay. So that's pretty significant. And so we want to understand where we are as adults and how it affects our students now. So how do trauma affect health and well-being? Next slide. So what we're looking at right now is an ACEs pyramid. On the bottom, you have the baseline, which is adverse childhood experiences. And when you move up the continuum, you look at how it affects our students. Disrupted neurodevelopment, which is how you process. And then you go into the social, emotional, and cognitive impairment, and how students interact with others and how they display their feelings. Then you get up to adoption of high-risk behaviors, being promiscuous or doing things that are illegal. And then it gets to disease, disability, and social problems, which ultimately ends to early death when our children are faced with these exposures to trauma. And so when we're looking in the school setting, we're mostly seeing the disruptive neural development, which is the executive functioning and how a child is able to self-regulate. And a lot of times we see that in our students and we think it's what? Bad behavior. But it's not bad behavior. It's how they're reacting to the traumas that they've had in their lives. And so they're learning how to cope and deal with those issues. And it comes out in how they interact with others. Next slide. And so this information right here is the study that was done. It was an ACEs study that was done They did an original ACEs study, which was from 1995 to 1997. And then after the original, they did an expanded study, which was 2012 to 2013. Now, as we go over this, I want to ask you all, have any of you ever taken the ACEs quiz, or you may have known it as the questionnaire? You can put it in the chat box. And you can either say yes or no. So this quiz allows you to understand what your ACEs scores are. And what it does is it helps you to look at what type of trauma you may have had, and how you can look at what type of resources you may need, or what you need to provide for your children. And so it just kind of gives you a baseline as to where you are, and it moves you towards what type of services you might want to consider if you have the type of scores that are high. And I would say one trauma to me is significant enough, because when you face a trauma, it definitely impacts how you perform in your daily life, how you interact with others, and how you express your feelings. So this chart below displays data on the prevalence of ACEs from the original ACE study shown on the left, and the expanded ACE study shown on the right. In the first study conducted by Kaiser Permanente and the Centers for Disease Control of 17,000 participants, you can see 69.9% of participants had at least one ACEs. In the expanded ACEs study conducted by the Philadelphia ACEs Project, 83.2% reported at least one ACEs. Now that's a significant amount of change in how many people reported ACEs. They also included community in the second study, in addition to the 10 traumas that they looked at in the first study. So I want you to take a moment to consider the differences between the prevalence of ACEs in the original ACE study and the expanded study. It's about a 15% difference. That's quite a bit. Next slide, please. So we're looking at 5 trauma responses when children have been exposed to trauma. Students have been afflicted with trauma often respond through fight, flight, freeze, fawn, or flop mode. These modes are representation of survival. Fight during this time, one's body gains a burst of energy, and they fight for safety. And you might see rage. You might consider that some bullying behavior or narcissistic behavior. In flight, this is when a person feels that they can outrun or outflight the situations they are in. They flee for safety. You might see someone who's overeating, who's distracted, not paying attention. You might see people who are staying busy, who are perfectionists, or maybe addicted to something. In freeze, when one freezes, this allows the body to mentally shut down and not feel any pain when unable to avoid a traumatic situation. And so freeze, you're scared stiff, you shut down, and you disassociate from others. And then you have flop. You surrender for safety. You might faint or go limp, or lose or have a loss of physical control. And then the last one is fawn, attach for safety, acquaintances, and be codependent on others, want to please others, silences and repress yourself. And so these are some of the characteristics that you may see in others. Are these some characteristics that you have seen in yourself or seen in some of your children who may have been afflicted by trauma? These are some characteristics that I noticed in some children in the school setting that I work in. And so when you understand these type of responses, then you might work with the child differently, because you know that it's not just behaviors that are so-called bad behaviors, but these are behaviors that are displayed due to trauma in the students' lives. And that's why we need to get to know our students better and build relationships and have conversations with them. Because when we have conversations and we get to know who they are, they get comfortable enough to start talking to you about some of the things that may have happened to them. And even your own children. We have children that sometimes we don't know that they've been through some things. And so we have to make it comfortable enough and build those relationships and keep that communication going so that we can talk to them, so they can feel safe enough to talk to us about things that are happening in their lives so that we can help support them in the aftermath. So students are not equipped to handle stress or trauma, and they have no social cues or awarenesses of expected behaviors. Next slide. Students who have experienced trauma have a different way of processing information. Their way of processing is impacted by the trauma they have endured, which affects their executive functioning. Next slide. Next slide. In looking at the executive functioning, we look at what goes in and what comes out. And this is our sensory memory, our short-term memory, and our long-term memory. And oftentimes when we're transferring information, it may be lost during the transformation. And this is caused by trauma. Next slide. So executive functioning can impact 3 areas of cognition: working memory, cognitive flexibility, also called flexible thinking, which is our executive functioning, and inhibitory control, which includes self-control. And that's what I talked about early on. A lot of times our children do not have the skills or the ability. They have not developed those skills because of the trauma. And children are not born with these executive functioning skills. They are born with the potential to develop them. And when they're faced with trauma, oftentimes their development decreases and it is not at age appropriate levels. Next slide. So what is executive functioning? We look at how it impacts the brain. You have 5 parts of the brain: your temporal lobe, your frontal lobe, your peripheral lobe, your occipital lobe, and your cerebellum. And so in these different areas, when children are faced with trauma, as I mentioned before, the brain becomes undeveloped. The brain can mature up to age 24 years old. And so when our children are exposed to trauma, that oftentimes stunts that development. And so then you get the issues with your executive functioning, which is your reasoning and problem solving. And in judgment, you have impulse, you don't have impulse control. And then you have irregular emotions that you're seeing within the children. It affects your number sense, your processing sensory, your language, your analytical abilities, and your visual processing, and also your higher learning thinking, like your math, music, advanced social skills. And all of this becomes underdeveloped because of the experiences that our children have with trauma. As I stated before, they're not born this way. They are subjected to underdevelopment of the brain from exposure to trauma. We must be informed. We must know these things in an effort to understand and support our students who have been through trauma. At this point, pretty much All of our students have been affected by trauma. And the most recent is the pandemic that we're in and have been in for 2 years. And so how do we respond to this health crisis? And how do we support our students who are still in a trauma state? Next slide. And so we're looking at, parents as advocates. We must first teach our parents about trauma and the impact it has on our children. Go down a slide. Thank you. We're on parents as advocates. Parents must understand it is important to have trauma-informed and resilient classrooms. How do we include parents? We invite them into the school and provide training for them. We include them in activities that relate to trauma-informed dialogue. We share with parents the resources and opportunities that they can participate in to help them build skills that they need to support and advocate for their children. And I know today I'm speaking with Baldwin Park Unified Virtual. And so this is a school that also has resources on their website. And so when I went on the website, I looked for information that I could share with our parents today. Sometimes we have information right in our local settings that we don't know about. And so I looked and I seen that they have a virtual parent workshop on social emotional learning. And they had a virtual wellness fair last May that can still be reviewed on their web page. So I need the slide for communicate, collaborate, and participation. Our parents need to be able to know where they fit in and how they can support their children. And so that comes from being able to communicate, collaborate, and participate. Helping parents to become trauma informed. And how we do that is to train them, have dialogue, focus groups, and surveys. And when we provide these type of focus groups and surveys, we are able to get information from the parents to tell us what their concerns are and how we can support them based on the information that they've given us. And so as a school, we want to make sure that we're hear the voices of our parents as well as our students. And so we want to survey our parents and survey our students and provide focus groups so we can have those dialogues so that we can know exactly what the needs of our community is and how we can better support them and provide the resources they need in whatever area they have issues with. And so we also need to educate them with the training, connecting them to resources and working with them working with parents to support their children. So we want them to also be able to apply the knowledge that they learn from the training. And through this, they could advocate for their children, become more involved in school and community activities. And so again, I went to Baldwin Park's website to kind of look at some of the things that they have that are available to our parents. And when I went to the health services, I liked the vision that they stated, and I want to read their vision statement. The goal of the BPUSD school nurses is to strengthen the educational process by improving the health of our students. And so the school is letting us know that they want to work to build the education for their students and to make sure that the children are healthy and safe in their environment. Next slide. So now we're looking at partnerships and community supports. Next slide. And so when we look at the partnerships, we're looking at behavioral health professionals, community programs, recreational centers, mental health advocacy groups. And again, I went on to the website for mental health services that Baldwin had, and they have a partnership with a service called Care Silence. And it's an online research tool that assists individuals in finding local counseling related services to promote the importance of mental health and ensuring the well-being of their district community. And so they want to make sure that they're providing these services for all, for their families, their students, and their staff. And so they have partnered with an online tool that can help support that. And I want to make sure that anyone who didn't know that before I end my presentation, that I provide some of these resources that you have locally within your school district. And so this services is actually available at no cost to all of the Baldwin students, family, and staff. And so I think it's very important that our schools connect with services that can help support and that our families can afford or not have to pay for, because this is a serious health crisis when we're dealing with trauma. And we want to make sure that all of our students and staff and our families are able to get the resources and the services to help support them in this journey. And so we also want to encourage our families to participate in community recreation centers in your local areas that have community programming, and just get involved. There's also mental health advocacy groups like NAMI, which is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. We have National Suicide Prevention Lifeline that was located also on the Baldwin webpage. And so I also spotted a community resource guide that Baldwin have. Is 39 pages of resources for parents, community, staff, and for students on different types of services that cover different issues, from alcoholism to trauma to counseling. And so I thought it was very important for me to point out that these are the type of partnerships that Baldwin is highlighting on their websites. And so these are some of the places where you can go to get some support depending on the type of needs that you have as a parent for your students. And so they also indicated school-based mental health agencies that they have partnered with. And so we have Center for Integrated Family and Health Services, which they call the Family Center, and that's located in Covina, California. They have the Children's Bureau, which is located in West Covina, California. They have Foothill Family Services, which is also located in Covina, California, and Hillside, which is in Baldwin Park. Kaiser Permanente Educational Outreach Program, which is known as EOP, that is also located in Baldwin Park. I hope this information today has been helpful to you. It was a pleasure sharing my knowledge and the information that I've shared with you. I hope that you were able to connect. I hope this was helpful and that you have received some resources and understand your role as a parent and how you can partner with your school district, with your local community centers. And I'm just thankful that you allowed me to come here today to be able to share with you. Are there any questions at this time? And so we can unmute our participants if they have any questions they would like to ask me at this time.
We
Thank
can
you.
either unmute or you can put them in the chat. And Dr. Young, I see them coming in the chat. And Kimberly, if you want to start reading off some of those. There's one from Amanda.
Thank you so much, Dr. Young. And that was an awesome presentation. You've gotten a lot of really good comments. Thanking you for the information. Amanda wants to know, is there a certificate for this session? So yes, we can provide a certificate of attendance for today's session that will be made available to those that were in attendance. And thank you, William, for joining us, and Quinn and Amanda.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was very great and informative and very important. Thank you.
Thank you for joining.
Thank you for joining us, yes. And I just want to add that as part of your follow-up email, thanking you for your attendance today, we will ask that you continue to partner with us and the DEA to raise awareness around trauma. We're going to provide a couple of resources for you all. One is just a little bit of information that you can use on your social media sites, on your personal pages, or even to print and share in person if we're still meeting in person. That just kind of talks about the statistics around trauma. We've also provided access to a resource, a couple of resources by the Centers for Disease Control. One is Adverse Childhood Experiences, a Prevention Strategy. And it really talks about not only the role that parents can play, but also the role that communities and schools can play to really reduce the impact of trauma and to really lessen the occurrences associated with adverse childhood experiences. And there's another informational page that really breaks down the numbers and some of the key points and educational factors around trauma. Those will be provided in an email so that you guys will be able to not only have access to that for your own information, but to also share it. You'll also get a link to share the ACEs quiz. At the end of this webinar, we will ask you if you will take 2 minutes to complete a post-webinar survey so that we can share with Gail and her division just how impactful this particular session was. So I would like to thank Dr. Young for her presentation, for her time and researching the resources that are available at Baldwin Park. And I would like to thank you, Gail, for inviting us out to be part of such an important event to educate the parents and the community members. And I would like to take this time to turn it back over to you to wrap us up.
And thank you so much, Kim and Dr. Young, for your information. And again, I think that was so valuable for you to bring in resources that are local to the community and so that they can start looking into some of those. And again, the importance of trauma and why we need to look at this, especially within children, in order to avoid hopefully some of the problems that we're seeing that's going into adulthood. Recent studies have been put out again, noting that the drug overdose deaths, they're way up again, over 100,000. So it's definitely something for us to be cognizant of and be mindful of. And one of the things that we continue to do at DEA is raise awareness in the community, and we continue to provide things like this, like education for adults and resources and information to support and enhance the work that you do. It's not just about us, but it's about what you're doing in the community. And one of the things that when I met with the Baldwin Park School District, this is one of the things that they wanted us to be able to do, is to provide this information to the community. Our approach to drug prevention has been focused primarily on educating the youth, but also educating adults and an approach to serving the youth and giving them the information and providing opportunities to the youth that they may not otherwise have. Some of the other things that we do in the community, we have a partnership with the LA Sparks in order to bring basketball into the schools. And while we think, oh, it's just something recreational, part of what we do with that is the drug prevention message. We also know, especially like in high risk and Title I school districts, typically the sports and the arts are the first thing to go within those school districts. And those are the times that those are the things that we also want to bring back into the youth lives and to create opportunities for them. Most of these programs that we started doing was after school programs, because we also know that a high risk time is between the times of 3 and 7 p.m. Where are they going? What are they doing? So we might as well give them something productive to do and open up their minds and create opportunities for other things that they may not have opportunities to. Another event that we're doing in Inglewood would be on August 21st. We're creating a outdoor barbershop event where we're doing it more as a back to school event. So we'll be doing free haircuts to the youth that come in and some adults. We're hoping to have giveaways for them for school supplies and backpacks and other resources that would be out there. Again, creating those opportunities that they may not otherwise have. And part of that is training the barbers in order to how to have that awkward conversation. Many times we know that the youth may go into the barber's chair and sit there and they, may talk about a lot of other things, but how do we make that conversation more productive? How do we make it into a mentorship conversation or relationship? And part of that is training the barbers how to do that. Again, how to have those, start having those conversations and how to become a mentor, how to have that awkward conversation. So those are the different things and the awareness and how we're going about doing our part in terms of educating and training our community. So again, thank you so very much for attending. Bill, thank you so much for inviting us, and we hope that we have meet the needs of your community. And again, please take the time to do that survey so we can continue to learn and improve and provide information to your community. So if there's anything else, we would open it up to Bill, if you have anything to say. If not, Kim, I think you want to sign off at this point? Or yes, Bill.
No, hello everyone. I just wanted to thank you again for joining us in the Baldwin Park Unified School District, for sharing this information with our families and our community. And thank you again for the time, and I look forward to continuing our partnership, Ms. Parker, and we'll be scheduling future supports for our community. So thank you again, and good evening, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.